Hi everyone, good evening, happy Sunday. I hope you're all fine wherever you are. I know we have a lot of people logging in from many different parts of the world. So, wherever you are, good day, and I hope you are safe and healthy in your own place at home. And I've been doing this for a while, and the idea is to bring in people who can help share their perspectives from a personal and professional lens as to how they coped with COVID. So today we have with us my evening peer, Shweta Tripathi. How are you, Shweta?
I'm fine, thank you, Elsa. Lovely to be
Shweta,
on the show.
lovely, lovely. Shweta is the global head for Enzen's Knowledge Studio, and she's very passionate about sustainable development, especially in the power and energy sectors. And we're going to talk about that, but in a minute. So, first of all, I want to ask you, Shweta, you're in Bangalore, and Bangalore has opened up. Mumbai is still, I don't know whether we've opened up or not. I can see a lot of people on the road, but there are lots of conflicting messages. So, how's it in Bangalore and how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, thank you, Elsa. But Bangalore, unfortunately, from last 1 week, we have been seeing quite a drastic rise in the number of cases, and we are scared if the things will go southwards fairly quickly. So, quite a few measures are being taken as we speak. Yesterday saw closing of 23 police stations itself because the police has it has become quite bad situation, and all the police officers are getting infected with the virus. And there has been a reverse lockdown, so quite a few localities have closed down again after opening up. But in the short time that we opened up, we saw a little bit of life, which was nice after a few weeks of closure. Um, However, things really stay scary, and we have to be careful. I think that's across India. Delhi and Mumbai have had the worst of the state of affairs, but I think other cities are also gradually going that way, and I hope it doesn't become really bad.
So, you've been working in the power sector, working across NGOs and other institutional stakeholders. Can you share how they have been affected during COVID?
Yeah, sure. So, power sector, we opened up starting 27th of April itself. My organization opened up because we are in the power sector, and that is an essential service that people need, especially during these hard times. It's important that places like hospitals have uninterrupted power supply. There are ventilators that need uninterrupted power and things like that. So a lot of work is going on in the power sector, and we have opened up, but then there is always the threat. So the organizations are trying to keep working at a minimal staff, which has been a challenge, especially on the fields where we have some of the distribution operations, and there have been breakdowns. There was Cyclone Amphan in Orissa, where we have distribution operations. And there were a lot of breakdowns. We needed manpower, and people were not there. So there has been quite a bit of, you know, emerging challenges that we were not prepared for. But this has been a lesson for us to, this also is a kind of force majeure for which preparations are needed, and we need to be ready. One of the good things that we saw was wherever we had implemented more innovative steps of digitalization and putting in place IoT based sensors, and putting in place a lot of data collection, remote data collection. Those places were comparatively easy to manage. And so, one of the lessons that we have learned is that we are going towards a future where things will have to be remotely managed, and therefore we need to get started and prepare for it ASAP.
So, So, Shweta, you've been pre-COVID. I'm talking about not only during COVID, but pre-COVID, you've been doing a lot of work with in the water and the power sector, especially in rural India. And
Mhm.
you work with NGOs, you work with women, and you work with the farmers. Tell us, whilst we have the opportunity and the privilege to socially distance ourselves, what is it like for them? And what access to services do they really have? What are you concerned? What are your concerns regarding that constituency?
Yeah, there it's from a water perspective, women still have to go to distances and get their water, so they are exposed. But at the same time, the populations are not that um, like the corona hasn't yet reached the villages that bad as compared to the urban populations. So relatively, from a water perspective, they are safe. On the power side, wherever we have had places which are electrified through renewable energy, where decentralized generation is happening, those places do have power supply. But when places which are remote but are dependent on the power grid and need electricity supply, they have supply until a problem falls. Supposing there is a problem with a pole or something, there is no staff to fix it, and those are the regions that are pretty badly affected because lack of staff, things cannot be fixed. People are living in some of the remote areas without power, and there is nobody who can go and fix it. Those situations are there still. Um, Men and women, I don't see a lot of difference in this situation, particularly because, from my perspective, because again, it's equally spreading, and both in the rural areas especially, I see women to be equally active as men, and both genders come out equally to do their respective share of work. So even the household chores that the women do in the rural areas require them to be out and about, collect water, take out the cattle, cook for some of the common institutions in the villages, things like that. So women are equally moving about, may not be getting paid for their kind of work, but they are equally moving about, so are at equal risk. Fortunately, so far, less of COVID infiltration has happened in the villages, but with this migrants, so-called migrants, we shouldn't be calling them migrants, but the unfortunate word has been put as a tag on them. The poor people who have gone back from these cities and trying to find out work in the villages are latent carriers, and now the risks are increasing. So that is my observation on the.
And are you concerned because they don't have access to great medical facilities in their villages? And if power is such a fluctuating commodity, they might not be able to cater to all the cases when it does reach them.
Definitely concerned, and more concerned because even if we say we have electrified most of the villages, it's not at a household level that the electricity is yet present. We don't have like 100% households still electrified. More importantly, we don't have the facilities for taking care of corona patients in our rural habitats, and rural populations are devoid of quite a few facilities that otherwise they would have in the urban areas. Even in the urban areas, for that matter, the facilities are not sufficient for the kind of population we are looking at. So if the spread happens, it'll be a real challenge, not just from a power water perspective, but also from a medical facilities perspective. From the perspective of, even if the very little medical facility available that is available, the rural poor will not be able to afford it. So there are quite a few issues, and I'm quite concerned about the rural populace not getting the adequate help should this thing spread to the rural areas in India.
That's quite a concerning point because, we've had such a large scale, I would say, migration of folk from urban areas to the rural areas during this time. And we are now seeing a rise in urban areas as they are opening up because we were asked to stay at home, but I don't think they had a plan for opening up or to manage the crisis. Therefore, now when it's opening up, we are seeing an uptick in the number of cases in urban areas. So I just want to ask you that during this time, was there any attempt made to educate the rural folk on COVID-19 so that they can better prepare themselves and take the necessary precautions? Because on an earlier show on inclusive cities, I spoke with a MP member of parliament from the Rajya Sabha, the upper house from Odisha, and he was telling us about how the villages in Odisha, they are already educated about the virus. So anybody coming from urban areas is first asked to quarantine for 14 days before they are allowed to move around, which I thought was great because just like we ask people to quarantine if they're coming from another country or another city, they should be doing that. So if that has happened, then that's great. But can you confirm that?
Yes, Orissa, I can confirm because we have our own power distribution operations with the state as a franchisee, and then does work for the power distribution there. And we saw quite a few very good measures taken in remotest of remote areas in trying to educate the people. The lockdown was implemented with lots of planning and also with a lot of preparation. So continually they were improving their strategies, and therefore Orissa has been one of the states which has relatively managed the whole situation quite well. But at the same time, I'm not sure if this is pan India situation. In quite a few places, I know efforts have been made to educate the rural population about the fear of it, but unfortunate bit has been that we didn't our planning did not include the understanding of their livelihood and need for food and basic necessities which they depend on their everyday wages. So when it comes to being scared of COVID and being careful versus trying to earn everyday living, they find the everyday living to be a priority, and therefore, even if they are being educated, they tend to ignore the implications of them going out because it's important. One incident I would tell you is urban Bangalore, where a couple of maids, household helps, are trying to get jobs because last 2 months they've seen a bit of the people are afraid. They have tried to get them off and not really paid them as well. So these people are desperate to get jobs, and they go out and tell that our area is completely safe. Please give us job. But at the same time, that's not really the case. Excuse me. So these are the situations in urban India, and when we talk of rural India, there they are not seeing that many patients as yet. They haven't understood the the seriousness of the problem. At the same time, they are seeing their livelihood being affected as a bigger problem. So despite all the efforts to educate them about the seriousness of COVID, I see less impact on the rural population as compared to the more educated urban population who are also connected to the outside world and seeing the impact of the COVID around them.
So let's rewind a bit. You are the head of Enzen's Knowledge Studio. So, in your role, what exactly do you do?
So, if I have to answer it in one line, I am responsible for the strategic growth of the company. And this involves knowing what's happening in the markets. This involves building up partnerships and investments. And this involves keeping track of what has been happening at Enzen across the 8 geographies, 8 office geographies, and across the 26 countries in which we have our projects, and keeping a database of that, and then sifting every information we've got to build up our next portfolio. That is pretty much the role of my portfolio in the company.
Great. So India for sure is a big market, right? And it's like a subcontinent. There are so many diverse issues. There's problems in every sector, in every area, in every state. So where do you see the opportunities for the next 10 years, especially with regards to sustainability?
For India, we have lots of requirement. One of the big areas that's developing is clean energy. The other area which should become priority very, very soon, although it's a bit of a dicey situation in our country, is water. So far, we have at least done some progress in energy sector. We have the electrification of all the villages done, but at the same time, much more needs to be done to make sure that whatever energy they are getting is continuous, is stable, is clean, and uninterrupted. Plus, we still need to reach at a household level. We haven't yet reached the household level in rural electrification in India. So that is a big, big area of work. But at the same time, the bigger challenge that I see in our country is diminishing groundwater, um, lack of water supply to many places, piped water supply to many places. And when I say piped water supply, it may be a groundwater based supply, but pipes connected to household level, that has not yet happened. Provision of clean water, and one of the big challenges is we are still treating only about 33% of our wastewater and dumping the rest of the wastewater in our water bodies, which is a bigger problem. So we have to, at a war footing, work on somehow managing our wastewaters and improve the water supply. So these I see as big areas. However, the work has been slow. Lots of changes which are happening gradually are needed in our policy space, in our conventional way of giving out projects. So that is a space where people are acting slow because of various constraints along with the financial investment requirements. But I definitely see India as a big market where much needs to be done in the sustainability space.
During COVID-19, we have seen that the difference in how it has been handled is based on the quality of leadership. So, do you think that our leadership is knowledgeable about sustainability? And if there is a will, more importantly, you can have the knowledge, but if there's will to really make that change, we only have 10 years to try and achieve the sustainable development goals. We can put anything on the paper to say that we've achieved these numbers. Like for example, the 100% electrification of India is there on paper. And it's true, maybe to some extent, but does it reach everybody is questionable, right? So it's what do you want to show and how do you want to show it. So, but that doesn't help you in terms of a crisis or really in the development of our country. So do you think there is the knowledge and there is the will?
I think there is knowledge. We have very, very qualified people sitting in very important positions in quite a few government departments. There is quite a lot of knowledge across our country, and there is no dearth of talent that exists. In fact, we are some of the people who have been, the jugaad uh, populace, and we have been quite innovative about doing things in many spaces. Also, there is will to do the change. Gradually, the need for clean energy has become a household thing as compared to once when solar used to be a luxury. So the understanding that all this is needed is there and is becoming more and more prevalent. Um, but I would also give the credit to this prevalent sentiment about moving towards clean to the young generation that has become very proactive in adopting clean uh, ways. I see little children not going to cafeterias that are giving plastic straws.
Hmm.
That's very happy. So overall, if I see our country, I see a need growing very, very fast. But at the same time, when it comes to implementation, um, we have a lot of legacy issues, some of them being policies that need a lot of reformation. And these are policies that are existing from ages, some 60, 70 odd years. And in many places, we are still sticking to those policies. And with that, it's becoming a counterproductive, to talk about innovation and then implement that innovation still in the standard format where we go to the lowest bidder in a tender. That kind of inhibits that speed of growth. Also, our systems are inherently in order to foolproof our systems, we have set up things like, where have you done this before? Innovation is something which is innovation. You don't do it before to bring it somewhere. So I see a lot of need for trial platforms for newer things. um, Maybe we should not go out and about implementing in big way, but we should definitely look at platforms being created for innovators to come and implement their ideas. And that is when I see a lot of new things will start happen in these sectors. Also, I see a big role that women are going to play in this, because lately in water and power sector, especially in water sector, I am seeing women being very proactive about quality of water, about ensuring supply in their households. And in a lot of villages, I have seen more women being concerned about the availability of these life essentials. So um, I have seen women self-help groups who have come up with models where earlier every woman used to go and bring water from some distance, some 6 7 kilometers of walking was required for that. What they have done is created self-help group where most of the women are being trained on some households, on some skill which they can implement and earn some wages for themselves, while one woman has been provided with a mobile auto kind of thing which has a tanker, and she can go and fetch water for all. So women are, there's social engineering happening within our country, and I see women to be very proactive in getting there and bringing some of these beautiful models which are helping themselves, and they are mutually helping each other. So I see a lot can happen. What we need to do is be open with at least small platforms where such innovations can be showcased, can be implemented, and can be tried out. That is one of the biggest need of the hour.
Earlier, you mentioned about IoT and creating solutions that can be remotely controlled. So, I
Hmm.
guess tech has a large role to play in it. So, can you share some examples of what you mean? Give us an example to make it tangible.
So one of the examples I'll give you is we implemented the first smart grid pilot in India in the city of Mysore, and it is only a very small part of Mysore city, but still has some 23,000 meters attached. And they are giving data, and there are other devices on the network that are continuously giving data in a central control room. When the COVID lockdown happened, uh, the the CISC, electricity supply company, Chamundeshwari Electricity Supply Company, was having a hard time in managing faults and catering to the entire city of Mysore. But we heard from some of our people who were working there that the areas where the devices were implemented were relatively much easier to be managed, because the data was remotely coming. Very little manpower was needed to find out the faults. Very little manpower was needed to see what kind of consumption is happening. Very little manpower was needed to do the billing for each of the connected areas. So these things were happening remotely, and IoT played a big role there. While for other area which was not digitally connected, it all this work had to be done manually, and a lot of manpower was required, which was not there. So the billing didn't happen, the collection couldn't happen on time, and as a result the utility itself had to go without getting the kind of revenues they ought to get. So this was one of the urban examples. On the rural end, if for example we have this drinking water scheme where we keep tab of the quality of the groundwater in different areas of the country. There is a central database for that. Now, as of now, the process is to collect the water once a month in most of the places, test the quality, and then report it. So there are multiple barriers here. One, somebody has to go and collect the water. That happens only once a month because it involves a person's whole travel time, collecting the water, bringing it to a lab, testing it there, then going back, sending a written report. That report has to be manually entered into a system. So this whole process of reporting the water quality takes about 2.5 months. So you only learn about the water quality 2.5 months later, when the water would have probably cleaned itself, because water quality keeps changing depending on what is leaching into it, what has come into it, how much dilution has happened, how much rainfall has happened, etc. If you, for example, set up sensors in these wells, you can actually get data once a day at the minimum, and that is automatically getting uploaded. So every day basis, you know the quality of the water at a single place. So in all these areas, IoT is going to eventually play a big role and has a great potential to be the future of the sectors.
I see you're really excited about this and the potential that there is in the
Yes.
future. If you were to be given a dream project, what would it be?
From my end, I would
Yes.
probably look at how we can supply water to the women of the country, especially in the rural areas, make life easy for them. And we would have to look at various models, various ways in which this can be enabled. I would want to have the women take control of the water supply in the rural areas. So this probably would be a project that would have both the elements of technology as well as social engineering involved. And if we can if in my lifetime I can get even say 100 villages capable of something like this, I would be really happy to do that project.
That's giving me goosebumps because think
Wow,
about how many hours that one woman would save.
exactly.
Not only hours, but the effort, and like it's tiring. So
Yeah,
she could then use that to do something else, right? That's a
absolutely.
wonderful thought. And I hope now that you've said it loud, the universe will conspire to make it happen.
I wish. I wish. I
So,
wish.
so you've been working since April whilst we've been sitting and relaxing at home. So tell me, how do you take care of yourself? What are your mantras for self-care?
Well, I have been working, but at the same time, work definitely has been slow. So it isn't it's in a way relaxed, but there are other stresses. Business growth is definitely one of the things that is top priority on our minds, especially with the slowdown. Um, but at the same time, the amount of work that is required is not as much. So we have had some of the personal time during this entire stretch of from March to till now. I have done a lot of reading. I have taken care of myself, had a lot of me time, thinking time. The situation outside has been both disheartening as well as thought provoking. And some thinking about what to achieve in a bigger way, what can be done, new thoughts, and that is definitely intellectually stimulating as well. So end of the day when you sleep you feel today's thoughts have been good enough for a day's productive well-being sort of that has been there. I have definitely been happy to have some time with the family. We are not traveling as much, so have got a lot of time with the family, which has been relaxing enough. Indulged in cooking, which is a good, stress buster as well as makes you happy when your tongue and stomach are satisfied. So yeah, I mean, lots of small things have made you relax sufficiently. But the bad thing has been somewhere there, all this relaxation has come with a little bit of guilt because we are continuously seeing stories of people who are uh, very badly deprived due to this situation. And while we are thankful of what we have, it's always a guilty feeling that's staying with you that some people still need a little bit of what we are getting, so that's there. That has not let me relax at all. The moment that thought comes back, that has not let me relax at all. But other than that, yes, getting some family time, getting not traveling so much, indulging in some of the personal hobbies has been happening, and that has been quite fun. Thanks for
Both,
asking.
both of us are Chiefney fellows, we're batchmates, and I know from personal experience you cook very well. So I'm sure your stomach is really happy. But I wanted to ask you, for those who don't know what Cheapening is, it's a mid-career break for professionals, and we are part of the India-specific program called Gurukul. How does that help someone like you who already is established in your career?
Well, for starters, I get a much broader perspective from fellows like you. When I went to Chevening, water and power used to be the priority on the mind, and every thought revolved around there. But then, when I had a cohort with 12 different people from 12 different sectors, and everybody having a fantastic view on what's happening in their area, it was a very, very enriching experience. And I think I ended up with a very broad perspective with that 3 months time frame that we spent together. More importantly, after those 3 months were over, we came back with 11 friends each. And those friends have been, in many ways, pulling us forward. So sometimes when you start becoming a little lax, you see some other achieving fellow from your cohort has done something great, and it's very inspiring. So you feel like, oh, well, I also need to do something about this stuff in my sector, and it's always there. So these friendships have been really nice, and they have been very inspiring. So I definitely have a lot to thank for to the Chevening program and evening tea.
Yeah, we had a great time. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. My last question to you is, what advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
That's a really tough thing. But a 16-year, well, I'm 18 till I die. But yeah, 16-year-old me, I would say I could have been a lot more um, assertive back then, which I was not. So at that time, the choices were made for me in many places than I could do myself. I probably would advise the children now, and I see it happening as well, that be more yourself, do what you feel is the best for you, and you will perform the best in. And many a times, society pressures make one take choices which are not probably the best choices, but one knows within him or herself what's best for them. So even if forced into a particular field, there is always a way to come out of that and still start doing what you want to do and what you do best. Because as life moves on, end of the story, you probably will be doing what you want to do. So why not take it up from the 16 years itself and do it in the best possible way, rather than taking it up little late in life and then thinking I could have done a lot more of that had I started at 16 years. I guess that would be my advice to me at 16 years.
Thank you so much for sharing, Shweta. It was really a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure
And
talking to you too.
I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.